A year ago, I purchased the FUJIFILM X-T5, and today I wanted to share with you my experience, what I think about the camera after 1 year of use, and I want to answer the question, is it made for you? So I've used this camera extensively for a year, and I would say that after kind of abusing it and using it in the rain, in every kind of situation, the camera still is pretty solid. In terms of build quality, well, the dials work still very well. I don't have any issue with them. I don't have any issue with the connectivity part of the camera. The only thing that I noticed though is that on the bottom of the camera, where I usually mount the camera on a tripod, well, you have some scratches here and there, but I knew what I'd sign up for when I chose the gray version of the camera. So inevitably there are scratches here and there. But the screen is still working fine, not moving at all. I know that a lot of people noticed that their screen was kind of wobbly, even from the moment they purchased the camera. It was not my case, and I can happily say that even after a year, the screen is still solid, right? I mean, right now it's moving a little because it's not properly put, but if you put it like this, as you can see, it's still solid. Now, I do want to mention though that usually I do not use the X-T5 extensively when I want to shoot video. When I want to shoot video, like I'm doing right now, I would rather use the FUJIFILM X-H2S, which has a dedicated full HDMI port. This one has a micro HDMI, and I tend to avoid it because micro HDMI is pretty small for the weight and the size of the HDMI cable. So usually I don't use that much the X-T5 for video. I did use it for a podcast as a VCam, and it worked fine. I had no issue with it. So far, so good. Upon release, the FUJIFILM X-T5 already had a pretty decent autofocus. It basically brought all the AI capabilities with the new processor, with different kind of subject recognition, like people, animals, train, car, plane, etc. And after a few firmware updates, I can happily say that it has even improved over the last year. Now, I'm not saying that the autofocus is perfect and always working fine. That is not the case, but it works good enough. I mean, you can still take great pictures with it. So if autofocus is a main concern for you, well, don't worry too much. It can get the job done. And that's one of the good news about those cameras, is that they still get firmware updates. Not as much as I would like them to get, especially with the newest video features that we saw on the GFX, and also the new film simulation. That would be great to have on those cameras as well, the X-T5 and the X-H2S, but still they get firmware update with some improvement here and there. So that's also a good point about purchasing the X-T5. It has improved over the past year. Image quality, well, in terms of image quality, I do have to say that having the 40 megapixel is a plus, but definitely not a must. The 40 megapixel allows me to crop a little bit more here and there in post-prod, but overall, I would say that it's not essential to my workflow. So if resolution you want to really see what's the difference between 40 megapixel and 26, I made a video to compare the X-T4 and the X-T5 and their resolution. So you can check that. But overall, I would say that don't think that the resolution will be a complete game changer. 40 megapixel and 26 megapixel sounds like a huge difference, but it's not that much. Especially for people who only upload to social. If you don't print in bigger format, you will not see the difference in your pictures. Now, one thing that I started to notice more and more though, depending on the type of shoot that I have, is the fact that this doesn't shoot fast, right? And that's also due to the fact that you have 40 megapixel files with SD cards, right? If you want something that shoots fast, without delay, without buffering, then this camera is definitely not the one that you want to get. You might want to get the X-H2 instead. This one, sometime when you take portraits with a lot of movement, for example, or sport shots, this is going to buffer. So if that is what you're after, don't get this camera because it's not made for you. Get something like the X-H2 or the X-H2S, while you will be able to shoot more continuously without being worried about the limitation of the buffer and the SD cards. Now, what I like the most about this camera after 1 year is still the fact that you have those Fuji dials, easy to control everything. Still, after 1 year of owning this camera, I'm still happy to use it and I'm still excited to go out with it. It's still very compact, very small, very retro-like, and it really makes me feel like I want to go out and shoot, which I might do right after this video. And even after 1 year, the specs of this camera is still great. You still have 40 megapixel, you still have the ability to take 20 frames per second with it RAW, you can shoot 4K 60 with this, you can also shoot 6.2K with a crop. Overall, this camera has aged very well, if not at all, honestly. It's still great right now. And yeah, I think that's kind of the case for most of the cameras nowadays because the technology is not very improving that much. You get some extra specs here and there, but overall, this camera is still very good even in 2023 and at the end of 2023. Is the Fujifilm X-T5 made for you? Well, if you're a hybrid shooter and you enjoy the retro look, the dials that the Fujifilm cameras usually have, if you want that tilt screen instead of having the fully articulated one that you can see in other models, and I think that also if you are a photography first shooter, but you don't necessarily need to have the speed, but you want a bit more resolution. You're not into sports or really fast moving subjects like animals or birds, etc. Then I would say that the X-T5 is a good bet. If you're more into sports, if you're more into video, I would usually recommend either the XH2S, because that's the best you can get for this kind of purposes. But the XS20 is also a good bet for this kind of applications. So let me know down in the comment if you have any questions about my experience with this camera over the past year. And by the way, it's Black Friday soon, so if you want to get it, I will leave a link in the description so that you can purchase it. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you missed it, check out this video right here where I reviewed this camera in a little bit more details. See you there.